Fiction, science fiction, horror, fantasy, crime, LGBT, thriller.
You have now entered the House of Mystery with your hosts, Eric Shapiro, David North Martino, John Copenhaver, and Al Warren. Heard on 106.5 FM Los Angeles,
102.3 FM Riverside,
and 105.0 AM Palm Springs.
Welcome back into the House of Mystery, and I'm Al Warren. Who else would it be? I keep trying to get Dave to take the reins.
Oh, no. Does anybody really want that?
Yes, when are you going to take the reins so I can take a break? I'm getting old. I'm going to be dead, rotten in this chair if you don't take over soon.
Have to have the listeners take a poll.
Yeah. Well, they like you. Come on, just think about it. They're all like,
Why?
because I'm the real, because you're just so nice and you act all nice.
They don't know
You're
me.
polite and you're all that. Well, yeah, I'm, little girly stuff. And I'm really mean. I've gotten so many emails about treating you like garbage. You should walk out.
I'm leaving, Al. I'm out of here.
Oh, well, I guess I'm all alone again with my cat, my dog, whatever. And it doesn't matter. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. Have you been watching that trial? No, you don't watch anything.
No, I stay far away from that stuff as I can.
Well, yeah, no, it's just weird because I just caught a flash of it. It was on the screen there going in that Kenosha shooting trial down there. That kid that had the AR-15 and walked through the street and shot people and killed them. And just a 17-year-old kid. Just terrible. Yeah. Feel sorry for him. But, he did it. He needs to pay for it. Just crazy. But, keep your AR-15 in your basement, okay?
I shall.
You can't hide it under your dress.
No.
Yeah.
No, I've tried.
I think you're being awfully friendly. What's that sticking out? No, anyway.
I disguise it as my third leg.
Yeah. In a dress? Okay. Well, speaking of dresses, we've got a writer out of Canada, and he's got a book out called Jailed. It's a fast-paced thriller that keeps you guessing to the very end. So, welcome, Mr. Robert P. French.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here. So far.
Well, it's only beginning, We'll see. We'll see how this goes. Well, that's interesting. Now, because you were not born in Vancouver. You're not a Canadian to start with. You were imported, right?
I'm a Canadian in every way except for the place that I was born. I was born in England and came here quite young. I was 27 when I came here. 27 when I came here. And over that time, I have become, as far as I'm concerned, completely Canadian. The only two things that I have that are still British is my accent, which I'm kind of stuck with, and my sense of humour. But apart from that, I never think of myself as British anymore.
So you're a dry Canadian.
I don't know about that. I like a drink now and again.
Well, so now you started doing this career of writing. This isn't your first career. You were doing something else, right? You were software developer and actor. So why the jump? Why the change to writing?
Well, after years in the software business, I wanted to do something that would express myself more artistically rather than scientifically and logically. And so I'd always been interested in acting. In fact, it was my original career choice that my parents talked me out of. So I guess acting was one of those things I had to do. And I really enjoyed acting, and I was quite good at it, but I wasn't good enough to be world class. And so writing was something else I'd always done. And as a 20-year-old, I remember writing a book of horror stories on an Underwood typewriter. And I still have the typewritten stories, but I'll never publish them because they're bad. But I decided I'd like to try writing, and I went through what you might call an apprenticeship or baptism by fire, if you prefer, until I actually published the first book.
Yeah, it's an interesting process. It's really it can be very challenging if you're not real confident. I wonder, was there a particular event or certain thing that gave you that confidence to be able to think you could write and publish it?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I guess I tend to be fairly confident generally, but when I started writing, I didn't start it so much as to be successful at it. I just wanted to get it out of my system, more or less. What had happened was that I was a principal in a company. It was a high-tech company, and we were going to all become billionaires, but we didn't. And so when that billionaireship didn't happen, I kind of went home and made a few phone calls, tried to get some consulting work, as that's what techies do when they're out of work. And I got fed up with making phone calls, and I thought, I've got this idea for a story. I'm going to write it. So I just sat at my keyboard and started writing. And in that first day, I started about 3 in the afternoon and finished after midnight, and I wrote 7,000 words. And I have never since written that many words in a day. The book was crap, but what the heck.
Well, you mentioned, you had on your bio that you had a failed attempt at writing a novel. And I like that you mentioned that because, most people think it's easy. They think it's like writing a grocery list. But it's a real craft, isn't it?
It is a craft, yeah. And I learnt the craft slowly, maybe because I'm a bit stupid and a bit arrogant. But I figured, I'm an avid reader. I'm sure I'll be able to write books just easy. So I started this first book, and I got to about 30, 40, 50,000 words. And I realized it was getting really quite boring, and I was running out of steam with it. And I had a book that dated back to the 1960s called The Writer's Handbook. And I flipped that open, and I found an essay that said, when you get stuck, write a different book. So I wrote a different book, and that was equally bad. And so it never really occurred, maybe I was just stupid, it never really occurred to me to go take lessons in this. So I just kept writing until I finally found a theme that worked for me. And it was based on some of my business experiences, and I actually completed a whole novel. And I took the novel, and this was before the days when publishers and agents would accept email submissions. So I spent a small fortune with Canada Post and sent out 130 copies of this book with begging letters attached. And I got back 72 rejections. So in my arrogance, I thought, can't be the book. Must be the way I write the letters. So coincidentally, I ran across the Surrey International Writers Conference, which you probably know about. It's one of the biggest conferences, if not the biggest, in North America. And so I went to that with the purpose of learning how to, write a pitch and how to submit to agents. And when I got there, I took the first few classes and I realized that I don't have a clue what I'm doing with this book. So I went back and did a huge amount of editing. And I also really lucked in. I found a wonderful editor in New York. And I hired her to do an evaluation of the book, sent her the book, and she sent me back a wonderful 30-page report. And she's just too good to say it in these terms, but she basically said, yeah, this isn't going to do it. So at the time, I was doing some contract work as a project manager for a software company. And every day as I went into work, I had to, it was in the downtown east side of Vancouver, which is where all the drug things happen. And every day I'd have to pick my way around needles left on the sidewalk. And I would walk past the entrance to this alleyway every day that was like teeming with drug addicts. Now it was their meeting room, their bedrooms, their toilets, it was everything. And I remember thinking, what would it be like to wake up in that alley in the morning? I mean, just think about it. You wake up in a place like that. And I mentioned this to my editor, and she started asking me questions, and I thought about her questions and started answering them, and that's how my first book started, which is a drug-addicted ex-cop wakes up in an alley, in that specific alley. And with the help my editor then was Lisa Rector-Mass, and she mentored me through the first two books, and she was just wonderful. She actually taught me how to write, because everything up until then was not that great. So that's the story of how the Cal Rogan series came to be, and how I just published the 7th book in the series.
Well, it's interesting. How do you put yourself into that position? Did you actually dress up in an old cop uniform and go sleep in the alley for the night, or how do you get, like, do you have to get into the scene, so to speak, just in your mind, or can you, how does it work for you?
I do it partially in my mind, but also I sometimes walk the route, as it were. Quite often, when I'm writing, I'll wander down to the place where I'm writing about and actually wander into the alley. And I did that, but I didn't actually go and sleep there. But in the question of getting into it, this wasn't a choice for me. But I write in the first person singular tense. First person singular present tense, beg your pardon. And I find that and I feel obligated to write that way. I can't write any other way. And it makes me kind of mentally live what's going on while I'm writing. So when I'm writing from the point of view of my protagonist, Cal Rogan, I go through the process of thinking what he's thinking and writing down what he's thinking and seeing what he's seeing. So that's how but I don't, I've never put on a cop's uniform and slept in an alley.
Oh, but you should try it. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I must say that my protagonist is a lot braver than I am, so I don't think you're going to see me in an alley anytime soon.
Well, in the same vein, I was wondering, since you've acted, you're a former actor, do you find that your acting background helps you to create that, to create your characters? Yeah,
I think so. And it's as much that, I've read lots of plays, and the interesting thing about a play is it's immediate. You have to tell your whole story in 2 hours or so. And so as an actor, I can put myself into the headspace of my characters. Another thing, although I write in the first person present tense, I break what is supposedly a rule that I do have multiple points of view. So each time I write a chapter as a character, I put the character's name at the top of the chapter so that the reader recognizes who's actually speaking. So I think my acting background was helpful in doing that, to getting to know the characters.
You know, when you talk about you have a character through all these books that you're sort of following, like that Cal Rogan, how much of you is in that character?
That's interesting. Cal Rogan in the books is currently 44, and I will keep him going in real time. And he's very much like I was at 44. I mean, he's a lot physically braver than I am, or was then. But he's a lot like I was at that time. So to get his reactions to things and, you know, his romantic life, and I draw on my own experiences when I was his age.
You can remember back then.
Ah, yes, just in the dim and distant past. Yes, when dinosaurs roamed the earth.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you know, I was like, you had the old quill pen, right? Well, it's interesting because when you put yourself in a character, which I think that we have to in order to write a character, there has to be some of us in it. That kind of makes it a little bit, you're exposing yourself in a sense. You're being made vulnerable by putting out some of your own characteristics on paper for everybody to see, and especially nowadays, because now there's the way the social media has taken off. Everybody and their dog can send you a message or see it.
Yeah, indeed.
You know, so how do you, is that a tough thing for you to overcome? Or do you think about it even?
I occasionally think about the fact that I'm exposing parts of my own psyche. But it doesn't really bother me that much. No, I'm happy to do it.
When you write your characters, like Carl, can you hear their voices in your head? Do you have an inner monologue? Is it more like translating what you're seeing into images into prose?
Both of the above. I've got quite a strong visual component in how my mind works, so I see the scenes quite clearly. But also, I speak the character's voice in my mind. A couple of characters whom I've just got to love, that I introduced a couple of books back, are two alcoholics who live on the street and who knew Cal when he was an alcoholic, when he was a drug addict living on the streets. And I love these two characters. And I know what their voices sound like. I know what they look like. I know, how they're going to react. And when I'm writing dialogue from their point of view, or writing their dialogue from somebody else's point of view, I really hear their words.
Did they ever tell you to do strange things?
Well, I thought we weren't going to talk about that.
We won't tell anyone.
We won't tell anybody.
Okay,
just give it to us.
Fine.
Come on, we know.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, did you walk down the road talking to yourself?
Actually, I sometimes walk down the road, not talking out loud to myself, but talking dialogue in my head. So yes, but no, it's. I don't quite know how to express this, but I don't know. The words just come to me, and sometimes I'll write something, and I will say, "Gosh, maybe that would be offensive for somebody," and then I think, "Yeah, except that's what he would say, so that's what he's going to say."
Yeah.
So.
Does that sort of worry you, like with the way I don't know. I don't want to get into the woke thing, but the whole idea of when you're writing something and you're having a character, and the character sometimes may not be, I guess, politically correct or polite, let's just say, or have good manners.
Mm-hmm.
So, but does that worry you with maybe a backlash for having some sort of something that he says or does that can, Well,
I never worry about that really, because everything I write is going to offend somebody. In jail, I decided to incorporate the fact that we're living in COVID land. So my characters wear masks when they have to, and that adds interest, because you can't always tell when somebody's lying when they're wearing a mask. So it makes fighting crime that much more difficult. And that offended one of my readers, who is an anti-mask, anti-vaxxer. So, and that's her opinion, and it's not my opinion, but and whatever I write is going to offend somebody. One of the two characters I mentioned, the two alcoholics who live on the street, one of them is an Indigenous Canadian, and in a book I referred to him as a native Canadian, and somebody said that was not really the right way to do it. But he was actually saying those words himself. So, yeah, I'm going to leave it.
Yeah, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you said that basically what your characters will do, but I know you write by the seat of your pants. Has a character done anything that has surprised you? Have they gone off the rails, kind of, and done things that maybe you didn't expect?
Yes. In I don't want to give a spoiler alert, but in one of my books, my main character, Cal Rogan, he's a great upholder of justice. And in one of my books, he kills somebody. And I wasn't expecting that when I wrote the book. But in fact, he kills two people, and one of them is a real problem for him. In many ways. I wasn't expecting that, but it happened. In another book, something happened as I was finishing the ending of the book, and it ended quite differently from how I was planning, because one of the characters did something that I think was completely in character for that person to do. With my first book, Junkie, I didn't know who the murderer was till about 70% into the book.
Wow. Well, that's interesting. Mm-hmm. So many people kind of plot or outline so they know where it's going to end, mm-hmm. and then they work their way to that. But you sort of just jump right in and work it.
I do. And I'm constantly I've got a general plan of where the book's going, but I constantly replan because something will happen that was unexpected. It wasn't part of the plan. It's like life happens when you're making other plans. For me, writing happens when I was making other plans. And so I will change the book and go back and change things in the previous part just because something really interesting has happened 40% into the book or something.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you get a surprise. So when you're sleeping down on the street with the needles, all of a sudden something different happens and you didn't realize, and so you have to go change the book.
Yeah.
Someone steals your underwear.
Or worse, steals your beer.
Yeah. Yeah, the importance. Yeah. Well, how would you describe characters to listeners? So, like, I ask this for a lot of fiction writers, and I get answers like, they're like my children, they're like my family. I get all sorts of kind of crazy answers, actually. So how is it that you describe your characters to you? Who are they to you?
I guess Cal is a younger version of me, and he's braver than I am. And he's driven in a similar way to the way I was driven at his age. The two characters who live on the streets, they're friends. In research, I have spent, prior to COVID, every working day in the Vancouver Public Library, which is where I've been writing. And I got to meet a homeless man there who was probably the best read man I have ever met. And I based a character in my first book on him. And so I've come to know quite a lot of people who are on what one might say the margins of society, hang out at the Vancouver Public Library, and I've got to know a lot of them. And so the two homeless characters are like friends of mine. And I really like both of them. My protagonist has a daughter who in the first book is 8 and is now 14. And she is a mixture of two of my granddaughters. So I love her like a granddaughter. So I do have a relationship with most of the characters. An interesting one is Cal's former wife. And I don't really know how I came upon her, but she's just kind of grew. I don't know. And I think she'd be one of those people, a woman whom I like as a friend, and would be good buddies with and would go and have a drink with. But I would never personally have a romantic attachment to her.
One of the books in the series stand alone, or of course you want them to read them all.
Mm-hmm.
But if someone picked up just one, would it be okay?
Absolutely, yeah. They all stand alone, pretty much. I mean, in the same way as Michael Connelly's books stand alone, but it's kind of nice to know Harry Bosch's history and as you read. And there's only one thing. I made what I think now is a mistake in my third book. I ended it on a cliffhanger, which I had to deal with in the fourth book. I wish I hadn't done that because it leaves the third book incomplete, and it makes somebody who just picks up the fourth book doesn't quite get what's going on.
Right.
So that was a mistake. So it's only the third and fourth books that probably need to be read in sequence, but all the others stand alone just fine.
Yeah. Michael Connelly. I think he writes, doesn't he?
He does, yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think he's that good. But, he gets by,
I was asked by an interviewer who would I invite to a dinner party, and Michael Connelly was on that list.
Oh, well, there you go. Yeah. I can give you his number.
I wouldn't want to presume.
No, he's not that nice anyway. But, no.
Oh, I'm sure he's a lovely guy.
He is. Yeah. He is. He's wonderful. They all are. They know my sense of humor. That's okay. Well, that's interesting. So when we get to the new book, Jailed, when someone takes that book home and reads it, just like even the others in a way. Is there some sort of subtext or some sort of thing that you want people to get out of the book besides the fast-paced thriller and the story itself on the top? Is there something else going on?
Yeah, one of my personal interests is moral philosophy, and I always, without being preachy, I always like to slip in a couple of issues of moral philosophy into every book. And the premise of Jailed is that there's an innocent young man in jail for accused of committing the murder of his girlfriend. And after much persuading, Cal decides to work on getting him out of jail. And a couple of issues come up there. One is, I'm very interested in the Innocence Project in the States, and there's one in Canada as well, that get innocent people out of jail. And one of the things I believe is that we shouldn't put people in jail as punishment. We should put people in jail for just two things. One is to stop them recommitting their crime if it's a crime that harms people. And two, to rehabilitate them. And unfortunately, we don't seem to do a good job in North America, or in Britain for that matter, of rehabilitating criminals. But I don't believe in punishment per se. I'm all about rehabilitation and public safety. So that is something that runs through the book a little bit. And also there's a point where there's a relationship between two people that a lot of people find objectionable, but I actually have a character who defends the relationship on grounds of morality. So I always kind of put those into the book. But I think the key story in Jailed is, that how do you get an innocent person out of jail, especially when the forensic evidence is overwhelming, and of course forensics is everything these days. So
yeah. Well, it's always so hard. I've had quite a few of the innocence projects out of the U.S. on the show, and I've talked to quite a few.
Wow.
It's really tough. They spend a lot. It's so difficult for them to get the proper justice. It takes so long, so much time, and it seems like the prosecution holds on to it no matter what. There's so many times that they just don't want to just let it go. It's almost like it's personal. It's strange.
It is. A good friend of mine is quite a famous Canadian criminal lawyer, and he says that the law has become competition. The prosecutors, they want to win. That's all they want to do. Not all of them, but many of them. All they want to do is win. And I think that's particularly true in the United States.
Yeah. Well, and plus they televise everything. And how can you actually perform your job correctly if you're being watched by millions of people? Right?
Yeah.
You play for the camera, or every time you walk in every day, they're talking about the suit you're wearing, or the tie, or did you gain weight, or did you lose hair, or did you? I don't know how you can do a job and focus on the job and not be focused on all the noise around you.
Yeah, I know. You phrased that perfectly as well. It is just noise, all that stuff.
Yeah. It is.
And I'm sure that in the hierarchy in a district attorney's office or a crown prosecutor's office, it really matters that you win lots of cases. And certainly for defense lawyers, if you win lots of cases, you will get a lot of new clients. So it really matters to you. But that doesn't really serve justice anymore. And the law and justice are two sometimes opposing factors.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy the things that you see going on, and it's becoming more entertainment right now than about getting some sort of resolution or get something solved or take bad people off the street or rehabilitate them, as you say. It's not about that. It's about how Nancy Grace looks.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yes.
She's a friend, so it's okay. I give her a bad time because she wears the worst pantsuits. Come on, Jesus, girl, you got some money. That's smart enough. But it becomes more about them than the case or the justice. It's no longer about, okay, we've got this person that did this, and let's fix this. Let's stop him from doing it, and let's fix it. We don't spend enough money on that. Not even close.
You're right. And you put your finger on what is a general malaise of society is every damn thing has become entertainment now. Back in the days when they started the History Channel, guess what it was about? It was about history. Now it's about all sorts of nonsense. Same with the Discovery.
Duck Dynasty and Honey Boo Boo and all that sort of stuff. It's just absolutely crazy. I don't. That's why I've strayed. I go into, now I watch Smithsonian or I watch Curiosity Street because they're kind of how it used to be on History and Discovery and all that.
That's right. That's absolutely right. Yeah.
It's awful. The other is just all fluff. I can't believe how much garbage is on those channels, but
and they
won't be hiring me.
Well, I won't tell them what you said.
Yeah, well, we'll keep it secret.
The other thing that's become entertainment to a large extent is the news. Don't tell me that Fox News is about news. Don't tell me that CNN is any more about news. It's about opinions, and I used to watch CNN a lot. I tend to lean slightly leftward, and I watch CNN a lot. I've stopped watching them. The only two news channels I watch are BBC and CBS, and I know that CBS is a good news channel because it's actually pretty boring most of the time.
Yeah,
they don't have these glitzy personalities that the other channels seem to have, but everything has got to be entertainment, and that's been the death of news.
And it's too much about these personalities again. Judge Janine Pirro, or you got all these different, Megyn Kelly had all these different news people that are they're knockouts. They got like these Botox bodies and they scream a lot of stuff. But there's it isn't reporting news anymore.
No.
It's a negative place to go.
It is. It is.
I just stay away from there. BBC at least is again it's on the verge of boring, but it's presenting news stories a lot more than what's going on with the American networks.
Plus the BBC. If you listen to the BBC World Service, it's the only channel where you'll get to hear in detail what's going on in other parts of the world.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I know when we were in the studio before, recording out of Seattle, a few years, and when they were landing that rocket on the moving meteorite, and it was on the BBC, they were watching it live, and then on CNN's feed and Fox's feed, they were talking about Kim Kardashian. And it kind of just shows you, people have no idea what's happening. They were talking about Kim Kardashian.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned this. I mentioned to you about the interview I had where I said I would invite Michael Connolly to dinner. The other question is, whose dinner parties would you avoid? And my answer was anyone with the last name Kardashian or Jenner or anyone from reality TV.
Yeah, just absolutely the craziest people on earth, and they have money. That's even scary. Totally insane.
Yeah.
No control.
People who
It's
are
just,
famous for being famous.
yeah, and I could care less myself, But the sad thing is, the young generation, the younger kids, look at that as an inspiration, and that's what they want to be. They're not looking to be a great singer or a great writer or a great actor or a great mathematician. They're looking to be a great
YouTube
oily ass. Yeah. They want to look like, I'm going to be an influencer. I'm going to wear my makeup a certain way. I'm going to get injections in my butt and my cheeks, and I'll have it made, I'll be on Dancing with the Stars.
Yeah, fortunately, the statistics are probably 1 in a million actually gets to be an influencer.
Yeah. Well, but they, nobody ever looks at that, especially when you're young. You're going to be the one. So where are you going to go with this? Speaking of it, because you're a pretty young chap still. So, you got a lot of years to kick here. So where do you go from here? Are you going to continue in this thriller kind of mystery format? Is that kind of where you're situated? You love it?
Yeah, I like.
Are you gonna...
Yeah, I like the format. One of my books is more of a political thriller, but Canadian politics ain't that thrilling. So
you got Justin Trudeau ripping his shirt off at a parade.
No, I'm a writer, not a sadist. But so I will continue with the Cal Rogan series because I love the characters, I love the books. But I do have another series that I've started on, which is the same genre. It will still be kind of the mystery thriller, but my protagonist's 14-year-old daughter will be the hero of this series. And it will be set in 2035 to 2040, that sort of range. So not science fiction. There will be no science fiction in it. Because I love science fiction as a reader, but I don't want to write it. But I do have some very interesting thoughts about where society is going, where artificial intelligence is going, where communications are going. And so I'm going to just create a world in 2035, 2040, where my protagonist's daughter can be a detective. And hopefully I'll live long enough to find out if I was right about anything.
You'll be drooling in the old age home.
Yeah.
And all this stuff will happen,
Something to look forward to.
Yeah, I mean, get one of your so it's kind of interesting that you say that. So after all is said and done, I wonder if some things will come true that you write. Do you ever think about being able to guess and kind of put into sort of your book what's going to happen in the future, and then all of a sudden some of it happens?
Well, in this new series, I won't put into the book anything that is wildly infeasible. There won't be any time travel or any of that nonsense. But and most of the things will be things, I'm keep up in the world of what's going on in the world of high tech. And most of the things in the book will be things that are either in existence now or in labs now being worked on. But there are some social issues that I think will be interesting. And one of them is around artificial intelligence. You remember the Westworld series? Well, Westworld isn't on my radar as such, but I do think it's very feasible that by 2035, 2040, that prostitution will be carried out by robots and or robotic devices and virtual reality as well. So I'm putting that into the book,
Well, what am I going to do for work? That doesn't leave much for me. Holy cow.
Taking your job away, Al.
Yeah, taking my job away. What are you going to...
It's not me, it's technology.
Society. Yeah, there goes my life.
Blame Google.
Yeah. Well, I'm always given writers really good advice on what they should do with their next book, and I have a great idea for you too. Okay. So this Cal Rogan guy, right? You should make him Joe Rogan's brother. So he does all this weird stuff too. He takes ivermectin and all that when he's got a cold, and you start having him kind of go off the deep end, and it starts affecting him mentally, and he starts getting weird, and then he starts going to these rallies, and he starts waiting for JFK Jr. to come back from the dead, and Hitler's coming from the moon, and the world is flat, and he starts getting really crazy. Just think about it. That would be fun.
Yeah.
It's all... I always get the same response, too, from everyone. But, it's all yours. No charge. Just take it. Run with it.
Okay, well, maybe Cal can stop obsessing about heroin and start obsessing about ivermectin.
Yeah, well, think about it. Yeah, it's cheaper. Come on. Easier to get, nowadays.
Maybe we could get it on the Canadian healthcare system.
Yeah, it'll be free soon. Come on. Mandatory. How was COVID for you? As in, did it affect you when you were writing and researching? And I guess the library probably closed down at times, and there was, kind of strange things. Because there's a real strange sense when everything shuts down, and there's a weird feeling through the air, right? So it's kind of it can be stressful, it could be upsetting, or it might be, who knows? Everyone deals with it differently. But so when you're sitting there at home and all this weird stuff's going on around you, did it affect the way you wrote? I mean, I hear some writers that say they shut right down, they couldn't do it, and other ones said, no, it was great, they had a good time, and everything worked for them.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, COVID changed my life in many ways. When COVID started, there I was in Vancouver, and if you'd have said to me, before this COVID is over, you'll be living in a town with a population of 43,000 people, you'll have 2 cats and a dog, I would have said to them, you're out of your frigging mind. But here I am in a town of 43,000 people with 2 cats and a dog, and a wife and a child.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, but from the point of view of writing, COVID was a negative for me. One, because despite my many years, I have a 10-year-old son. And we decided not to put him back in school. But, by the end of the school year of, when was it, 2019, we decided not to put him back in school. So I've been homeschooling him, which is, previously I was going to the library 6 days a week and writing. So now I only get to write 2 full days a week and little bits during the weekdays. So it did affect the speed of output. But in terms of the actual writing, when I write, I kind of, everything else falls away. So I don't think about COVID unless I'm writing it in the book. Right. And although I've lost writing hours, I may have gained writing productivity. So I don't know.
Yeah. Huh. I wonder. I always ask people if that kind of stress or darkness, unsureness of things around you, I wonder if that seeps into your writing in a way. I wonder, because it's so much based on what's processing in your head at the time when you're writing. I wonder if it can get a little bit maybe darker because of it.
It could do. I mean, there's quite a few dark sides in my book, in my books anyway.
Yeah.
Was Jail darker than previous books?
I think it's one of those things that, you'll look back in years from now and maybe see something that you didn't see today, because it's still kind of around.
Yeah.
And it's still a big influence on our day-to-day lives. But if you think in 10 years when it's no longer, hopefully no longer anything that we talk about every single day, or it's not affecting the way we behave, that maybe when that stress is relieved a little bit, you'll see or pick up things that you probably didn't have. Yeah, because, it's got your attention right now still, especially when you go out to your anti-mask rallies and all that, right? and so that, you're so active doing all that maybe,
Yeah. Just on that issue, I was first in line for the vaccine. As soon as I was eligible, I was there.
Yeah, I think it's just one of those things, It must be the bubble people grow into and who's around them and what they believe. If they really, it's really strange how there's, if you think the Bilderbergs killed Diana for landmines, maybe you'll think the government's, gonna put Bill Gates' chip in your arm. It's just like,
I love that particular conspiracy theory because you don't really need to know a lot of science to know that if a chip is too small to be seen, its battery cannot exist.
Well, yeah, but we've had guests on telling us that that they know masks don't work because they stand beside another guy and he farts and you can smell it. So and you're like, oh my God, really? You're that okay? And they're writers, they're published writers, and I used to always think that but it's crazy. So it's kind of at the point where you just kind of got to laugh it off, and this too will pass, like everything else, and then it'll be something else in 10 years, So who knows?
Yeah.
So do you have like a website?
I do.
A place that you like to interact with people? Where do you like to see readers send things, or do you like to talk to your readers?
I love to talk to my readers. I have a mailing list of 7,000 of them, and I love. One of the joys of writing for me is the interaction with the readers. People will send me an email saying, I just finished such and such a book. Oh, it was so good. It reminded me of when I was, and I've had, in the first book, Cal Rogan is a drug addict. I've had tons of drug addicts contact me. And I haven't bought a single thing from them, I will say, but I've got a lot of
No, you supply.
Oh, no, good heavens, no. Anyway, that was an aside. People can contact me through my website, which is robertpfrench.com, or on Facebook, which I'm Robert P. French author. And you can get any of my books at Amazon by searching for Robert P. French.
Yeah. Of course, we'll have that on the website. People can get one click and then they can hunt you down.
Hunt me down in Penticton.
Yes. Well, that's the place to be.
Yes.
Well, it's been a pleasure.
Likewise, I've loved this. It's been great.
Yeah. So, okay. So people listening, we were talking about the book Jailed, and this is the book you need to buy. If you're going to buy one book for Christmas, you have to buy this one. And that's all I can say. And our guest was the author, Robert P. French. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's been great.
Thanks, Robert.
Tired of wasting time trying to decide what to watch on your streaming service? Go to our website and look for the Martino movie reviews.
To find out more about our show, guests, or to listen to past shows from our archive, please go to www.houseofmysteryradio.com.
Show's over for now.
Was it as good for you as it was for me?
Well, good night.
This has been a production of Something Weird Media.
I'll be back.